We have spent a lot of time with the clones, during the Clone Wars and even in the early days of the Empire. But do you know the story of CT-616, aka Kix, the longest living clone who's around well after the Battle of Endor? Kix even had insider information that could have changed the course of the entire galaxy. Kix's life started the same as his million-plus brothers. His training on Kamino put him on the path to be a medic in the Grand Army of the Republic. In the early days of the Clone Wars, General Grievous was proving himself a dangerous adversary. He led the droid army to many victories in many systems. Obi-Wan Kenobi was tasked with taking Grievous down. The plan was to capture the general, but he wasn't the surrendering type. There was a fierce battle over the planet Seleucami, and as always, I apologize for my pronunciation. The name translates in basic as Oasis. It was a planet that did what it could to remain neutral in the Clone Wars, but the war eventually came to it. For fans of the Clone Wars, if this planet doesn't ring a bell, it will very soon. Kix's ship was badly damaged. He was forced to jettison an escape pod and touch down on the planet's surface. He was recruited, along with a bunch of other clones, to back up General Kenobi in his pursuit of Grievous. When this group came across a crashed ship, Obi-Wan, Captain Rex, and droid expert Chris stayed to investigate. Kix, Rex, Jesse, and Hardcase moved on to find more escape pods. In their search, Rex was shot by a sniper. The bolt was incredibly close to killing the clone captain. Kix immediately jumped to his aid while Jesse and Hardcase hunted down the assailant. Looking for some shelter, the group found a homestead. The owner, a Twi'lek woman named Sue, allowed them to stay in her barn. Rex regained consciousness and, thanks to the miracle drug Bacta, would make a full recovery. I have an excellent transmission all about Bacta on the channel, check it out. The clones worked with the seasoned Jedi Master to track Grievous. The clones worked to dispatch the battle droids, and Kenobi had a quick duel with the cyborg, who would become an ongoing rival. Grievous managed to escape by attaching a tow cable to a separatist shuttle and being lifted out. Many battles later, Kix was serving with the 501st under command of Jedi General Anakin Skywalker. Their mission was to fight off the Umbaran militia and free the planet known as the Shadow World, since there was very little sunlight on the planet's surface. The planet was rich with dunium, a metal crucial in the construction of starships. The 501st fought hard. They took many casualties. Anakin called in for air support, and a contingent of Y-Wing bombed the Umbaran reinforcements. This led to a lull in the battle. Jedi General Pong Krell relieved Anakin of his command and said the Jedi Council wanted Anakin back on Coruscant. Anakin was never happy to leave the battlefield. He hated leaving his men. Krell changed the mood of the men immediately. He treated them like disposable property and forced a 12-hour march through rough terrain. Kix pleaded for rest for the good of the men, but it fell on deaf ears. Krell's next move was to eliminate the tactically sound plan Anakin had set up and commanded the troops to charge head-on into the enemy, guaranteeing casualties. Krell, unlike Anakin, wasn't the type to lead the charge on his own. He would sit back and watch, allowing the troops to die. Captain Rex, always loyal to the Jedi, disagreed with the orders, but carried him out the best he could anyway.
Good soldiers follow orders.
As the members of the 501st took countless injuries, Kix did what he could for them. He administered Bacta, bandaged wounds, and even provided stimulants to keep his brothers in the fight. Matters got even more complicated when Obi-Wan Kenobi contacted Krell, explaining that he, Kenobi, was unable to capture the Umbaran capital. He asked Krell to have the 501st secure a nearby airbase. Krell, with no idea how he'd accomplish it, agreed. The 501st tried to voice their concerns about the lack of a plan when Krell split the Legion in half. All the while, the 501st were taking casualty after casualty, and Kix hopelessly did what he could. Banshees, local scavengers to the planet, started picking at the wounded. Kix was enraged and killed as many as he could. Rex understood his brother's plight, but commanded him to walk on with the rest of them anyway. The Umbaran military had heavy ordnance that cut through the clone ranks with ease. Their request for backup was denied, and Krell ordered them to keep pressing forward. Rex led an assault on the primary heavy cannon, getting even more troops injured or killed. Kix was running in and out of danger to drag the wounded back. After Rex's latest assault failed, he helped Kix with the wounded, but there were far too many. He was aware of how fruitless everything they were doing was, and with a heavy heart, told Kix, they would have to leave their brothers, at least until things were safe, reasoning that if Kix died, he wouldn't be helping anyone anyway. Rex was a far better tactician than Krell. He ordered Fives and Hardcase to sneak behind enemy lines and steal 2 starfighters to combat the heavy artillery. The plan worked. Clone lives were saved and the airfield was captured. The 501st now had the means to destroy the Separatist supply ship in orbit, cutting off all supplies to their enemy. Krell, never failing to shoot down a good idea, denied the request and ordered the clones march back into the meat grinder by heading to the capital. Kix assisted Fives, Hardcase, and Jesse in defying Krell's idiotic orders and got the stolen fighters ready to take down the supply ship. This was also a success, but there were no congratulations on the clones' return. Fives and Jesse were court-martialed. Despite Rex's objections, Krell assembled a firing squad to execute the clones. In a perverted twist, the visiting medic, Kix, was assigned to be one of the executioners. Kix missed his shot on purpose. He would not kill his brothers, especially when they had done nothing wrong. The only stay of execution was a suspicious transmission claiming some clones were attacked and had their gear and armor stolen. It wasn't until many troopers on both sides were gunned down that Rex realized the armor wasn't stolen. The actual 501st and the actual 212th were killing each other. The clone leader of the 212th, Waxer, was badly wounded. Kix attempted to save his life, but the wounds were too grave. Kix did manage to get the man to hold on long enough for him and Rex to realize that Krell had told both clone units that the same lie, pitting them against each other intentionally. Rex gathered some troops with him, Kix included. They freed the imprisoned Fives and Jesse before calling out the traitorous Jedi General. Krell used his double-bladed lightsaber to cut through the accusers and flee. The clones pursued, and Krell kept cutting them down. The clones learned about the dangerous fauna local to the planet on their 12-hour grueling march. A clone called Tup tricked Krell into awakening some of these semi-sentient vines that tossed the Road Jedi around. The clones were able to subdue the general and kill the wild plant. Krell was eventually executed by a clone appropriately called Dogma. He truly believed the mantra we'd soon learn was tied to the clone's inhibitor chip.
Good soldiers follow orders.
The 501st barely had time to process this betrayal when they were ordered to the planet Kairos. Kix was still attached to the unit and accompanied them. By now, he would have formed tight bonds with his clone brothers and brothers in arms. He was probably also relieved to be under the command and protection of Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka Tano. The 501st fought their way to the city center, facing down battle droids. The city had been taken under Count Dooku's oversight. He wasn't on the planet, but pulling the strings just the same. The Jedi were the heroes of this battle, but Kix saved many lives of injured Republic forces who got caught in an explosion. Toward the end of the Clone Wars, Kix, still with the 501st, was part of the Battle of Ringo Vinda. Ringo Vinda was a mid-rim planet made famous and tactically important by a massive space station that encircled the entire planet. The battle actually took place on the space station and not the surface of the planet itself. During the fight, Tup turned his blaster on Jedi General Tiplar and killed the Mickean in front of her twin sister, Tipli. The Republic forces fell back and Rex gets Tup aside. Rex thought the trooper simply snapped, the pressure of the war being too much for him. Kix tried to assess the man, but was attacked for his trouble. Tipli suspended Tup in the air using the Force and showed great restraint in not executing him on the spot. Kix reported to Anakin that Tup's scans and recent actions were consistent with combat-related stress. This is normal for most humans, but for clones, it stood out as their genome was altered to make them more resilient to that type of mental pressure. He then recommended to his Jedi superior that Tup be sent back to Kamino for a comprehensive evaluation. Kix ended up discussing all this with Fives, who had a lot of issues related to the larger plot that was beginning to unfold. Fives knew a lot about the plot to frame the Jedi, and that they were in terrible danger. Kix arranged for Fives to meet Rex and disclose this information, as trusting any non-clone was seen as too risky. This new information, while vague, left Kix shook. Republic forces were taking a beating at the Battle of Anaxis. No matter what the clones and Jedi threw at them, the Separatists seemed to have an answer ready for it. Captain Rex and Commander Cody found the responses from the enemy too perfect and realized something was up. They consulted with Anakin and Jedi Master Mace Windu about a strange hunch. Rex believed that CT-1409, Echo, a clone who was missing and presumed dead long ago, was alive and being used for information. The Jedi approved Cody's plan of infiltrating the Separatist base with a small contingent of clones. Kix accompanied this mission as the medic. The rest of the crew wasn't selected from standard clones. Clone Force 99, aka the Bad Batch, was called in. This elite group of clones had been genetically modified to be super soldiers. They operated on their own most of the time and were beyond effective. Cody was pinned down under a gunship. Kix, who didn't fully comprehend what the Batch could really do until he saw Wrecker lift the gunship itself by himself, rescuing Cody. Kix attended to his commander straight away as the 4 members of the Bad Batch took on a battalion of droids. The Bad Batch lived up to their reputation. Rex and Cody's hunch was correct, though more horrifying than they could have possibly imagined. Echo was indeed alive. He was turned into a cyborg so the Separatists could tap into his brain like a computer terminal and get all of his battle knowledge. Echo was rescued and would join the Bad Batch as he didn't feel he belonged with the standard clones any longer. Whenever Kix had downtime, which must have been increasingly rare given how many major events of the Clone Wars he was part of, he continued to look into the inhibitor chip issue Tups' actions had first clued him into. Kix uncovered exactly what was coming. He learned about the potential in the inhibitor chips inside every clone's head. They held the power for Chancellor Palpatine to send orders into the minds of every single clone. He knew those orders would one day be the destruction of the Jedi the clones served and had largely become friends with. Kix knew he had to do something, but had to be very careful with the information. Before he could make his mind up on exactly what to do, he was captured by Separatist forces under Count Dooku's direct command. He was interrogated to see who else knew about Palpatine's overall plan. Kix did what he could to resist, but what the simple truth was, he hadn't had a chance to tell anyone yet. The Separatist underlings wanted to bring him to Dooku himself. They dragged him aboard a cruiser called the Abrexta 3 and threw him in a cryostasis pod. The plan was to transport the prisoner to Sereno, an Outer Rim planet loyal to the Separatists and Dooku's birthplace. As the Abrexta took off, it was attacked by Republic ships. The droid crew on board didn't have time to raise shields or weapons or even a meager defense. They were programmed to not let the clone prisoners be taken back. They jumped randomly into hyperspace after sustaining major damage, and the ship disappeared from history for 5 decades. A notorious pirate, Sidon Athano, and his crew on the Messin Martinet caught wind of a downed Clone Wars-era ship. They believed the ship to be carrying a treasure once owned by Count Dooku. They thought this a good opportunity to do some plundering and make some credits. So they journeyed to the harsh desert world of Panama Terminal. Athano and his band of pirates had their own adventures along the way, which you can hear all about in a transmission all their own. For Kix's story, the rumored cache of Kyber crystals turned out to be false, and Kix was found instead, his stasis pod still working all these years later. They woke Kix from his deep, preserving sleep. He had no idea of how long he'd been out or where he was. His brain was reeling. He was manic, thinking he had to warn Anakin Skywalker and the rest of the Jedi Order of the oncoming threat. The threat that changed the course of the galaxy half a century before. He told the pirates the entire plot, a plot virtually no citizen of the galaxy ever knew, let alone at this time, so distant from that horrible war. Kix passed out from all of the excitement right after requesting that he be taken to the Republic to talk to General Skywalker. 2 eras in the Star Wars universe collide as battle droids creaked back to life and attacked the pirates. The pirates fight their way out, carrying the unconscious Kix. These details are further covered in that Athano transmission that I mentioned, but the result is that Kix is offered a place on the pirates' crew. The pirates downloaded information on numerous Separatist strongholds and bases, and with Kix's war knowledge, as fresh as the war had just been yesterday, agreed to go with them. Kix grew out his hair and grew a beard. He had a hard time with his reflection as he shared a face with millions of his brothers, long dead. He redonned Phase 1 clone armor, even though for the bulk of the Clone Wars, he wore Phase 2 armor. He had it custom painted blue with red detailing. The clones were tremendous soldiers, bred for one purpose and trained since birth. Even as a designated medic, he was effective at dealing damage as well as healing it. His reputation, along with the strong reputation of the pirate crew he joined, spread quickly. The pirates became rich as they raided separatist supplies and resold them on the black market. In some sweet karmic justice, quite possibly the Force at work, when the Resistance called for all citizens of the galaxy who would stand up to tyranny to fight, Athano and his crew answered that call. They joined thousands of ships coming in from everywhere over the planet Exegol. I don't know if Kix ever put it together, but he was once again involved in a war in which Palpatine was pulling the strings. This time, the war was won, and Palpatine's tyranny was destroyed forever. Kix's story isn't finished. I'd love to hear more from the clone soldier, a man out of time. I wonder if he would get to finish his life in peace, or if he'd ever want to. He got to experience some massive events during the Clone Wars, and then helped shake the galaxy again 50 years later. Check out this playlist next for more prequel-era stories.